Have you ever gotten a text and thought, what the hell did they mean by that? Everyone I know has their very own unique way of texting. For example, I use a lot of exclamation points. This is because I feel like this is the most accurate representation of how I am in real life and how I talk in real life. But there are a couple of times where my friend's unique way of texting have sort of caused a lot of miscommunication, and I'm sure a lot of us have gone through the same thing. There are two particular stories that come in mind when I say this. The first is with one of my best friends, who always writes in perfect sentences, which is fine, except for a lot of the times when people are texting, they don't do that. More often than not, when people use periods, it's because they're trying to say that they are upset. My friend Arizuki, on the other hand, just uses periods because that's how you're supposed to end a sentence, and it took a long time for me to realize that she wasn't angry or upset, she just texts that way. The second person I'm going to talk about is someone who, at the time, I was just getting to know. And his charisma stats, let's just say, were off the charts. And what he would do is he would constantly use the smiley face emoji. And at first I thought this was really, really nice. But the more I got to talk to him, the more I realized that something didn't add up. Now, he wasn't necessarily a bad guy, but like with a lot of people who have high charisma, they need to use those charisma points to cover up for a lot of negative things. And the more I talked to him, the more I realized what that smiley emoji really meant. For example, if we were talking and I started to show signs of being slightly agitated, he would use the smiley face emoticon to try to calm me down. But even as the friendship progressed, I sort of realized that it didn't matter if I were standing there or if he were talking to a post, because my main purpose in the friendship was so that he can continue talking about himself. And it was the little things that I didn't really pick up on, like if I were talking about something very specific, he would respond with one sentence, insert the smiley face emoticon, and then continue to talk about himself or whatever he wanted to talk about. Close to the end of our friendship, I started to adapt the way I talked to him so that the conversation would always revolve around what he wanted to talk about. And I even started using the smiley face back, but I didn't do this to be mean, but it became really clear that he always agitated me and I always agitated him. At the end of the day, we just didn't like each other. But the last conversation we had, it was a normal one. It was actually about Lord of the Rings, which is funny because a lot of my friendships seem to hinge on this fandom. But the conversation was completely ordinary. There wasn't a fallout. There wasn't any hostility. It was just a normal conversation about Lord of the Rings. But as we were talking, I knew that this would be the last conversation we would have. And I just had a gut feeling. I just knew it in my gut that we would never talk again after this conversation. And apparently he had the same gut feeling because that is the story of how our friendship ended. :